Mr. Majewski's Anatomy 32 class lecture, Chapter 26, Reproductive System, Part 1, Male Reproductive System. So, the main functions of the male reproductive system includes the production of sperm and testosterone from the testes, ducts that transport, store, and assist in the maturation of sperm. There are the accessory glands that secrete most of the liquid portion of the semen. And then there's the penis, which contains a urethra, a passageway for ejaculation of sperm and excretion of urine. Let's start with the scrotum. You can see the scrotum has a lot of different little parts. There's the raphe, which is the median ridge of the scrotum on the outside. This represents sort of the external representation of what's inside, which is the scrotal septum, which is a wall that divides the scrotum into two sacs, each containing one testis. There is the dartos muscle, which is a smooth muscle tissue of the septum and subcutaneous layer down here. And then the cremaster muscle, one on each side, that is skeletal muscle tissue that's associated with each testis. The scrotum is a location hanging off of the trunk, as it is to keep the testes at the ideal temperature for sperm production, which happens to be 2 to 3 degrees below body temperature. And the muscles of the scrotum are then able to respond to the external temperatures to either pull the testicles closer to the body cavity for additional warmth or let it hang down to cool off. Each testis is a site of sperm production, and it has many layers. Besides obviously the scrotum, you have around each individual testes the external and internal spermatic fascia, which are connective tissues that cup each testes and hold it sort of in place. You can see that they are continuous with the spermatocord above them. Then specifically solely around each testes is a tunica vaginalis, which is a serous membrane that partially covers each testes, and then the tunica albuginea, which is connective tissue that surrounds the testes and also moves internally into the testes to form lobules. So here's a cross-section of a testes. You can see how the tunica albuginea is pushing into the testes here to form the seminiferous, the lobules, where you have the seminiferous tubules, and it's within these two where you get the sperm production or the spermatogenesis. So if we take a closer histological look, we see that the testes has a number of different types of cells. You have the Leydig cells that are on the outside of the tunica albuginea. And here it's where you also have blood capillaries that are supplying nutrients to the testes. And these Leydig cells produce testosterone. And this makes sense because now the testosterone can easily diffuse into the capillary to go throughout the body. Then, deeper within the testes, you see that you have the Sertoli cells. The Sertoli cells form a blood-testes barrier via tight junctions between Sertoli cells and other support cells, and they help support the cells that will then produce sperm cells as well. The importance of the blood-testes barrier is that it keeps the body from having an immunological response to the sperm cells themselves. And then there's the spermatogenesis cells. These are the cells that are stem cells that can then differentiate into sperm cells. So, spermatogenesis. Basically, this is a form of meiosis, like we talked about in Chapter 2, where you start with that stem cell that is going to differentiate into a cell that has 2N, that has a total of 46 chromosomes, and as humans, and then go through 2 cell divisions to end up with 4 cells that each have only 23 chromosomes, so only half the number, which makes sense since it's going to have to fuse with the oocyte at some point that also has half the number. The key factor, of course, is that the 4 cells at the end not only have half the number of chromosomes, but they are genetically distinct, a new mix of the DNA of the father. So, through this stage, we start with the spermatogenesis cell. It'll divide in 2. One of them will differentiate into the primary spermatocyte, so the 2-end cell. This will go through the first layer of cell division, so you end up with 2 primary spermatocytes that become the secondary spermatocytes. And then these 2 secondary spermatocytes will then differentiate further into 4 distinct spermatids, immature sperm cells, each with only 23 chromosomes. And at the end of spermatogenesis, you will get a sperm cell that looks like this. It is a haploid cell with a head and a tail. The tail is the flagellum, the only cell in the human body that has a flagellum. And the head has an acrosome, which will help it penetrate the oocyte, should it be lucky enough to get there. Alright, so we got our immature sperm cells being produced in the spermiferous tubules. From here, after they are produced, they will travel through the straight tubules into the rete testis, and from here, this network of ducts will then eventually lead through an efferent duct to allow the immature sperm to exit into the epididymis. Here's the epididymis. It's sort of a comma-shaped structure that lies on top of the testis, and the epididymis is the final site of sperm maturation. So here is where you'll get the sperm to finally be mature and functional, and then it gets stored here for a period of time. Eventually the sperm will be transported through the ductus deferens, which is a long duct that runs from the testis up over the pubic bone, around the bladder, and then down till it is in the back posterior side of the prostate. And this transfer of sperm is conducted by peristalsis. And then you get to the ampule, a larger area of the ductus deferens, and that is another storage site for sperm. Now, this long structure that ductus deferens runs through is called the spermatochord. Spermatochord also includes blood vessels, nerves, lymphatic vessels, lots of connective tissue, so it's a big structure important for taking care of the epididymis and testes. So here is the ampule, the ductus right here, and it forms a union with the duct of the seminal vesicle. And when ejaculation is to occur, the sperm and fluids from the seminal vesicle will leave through the ejaculatory duct into the urethra. The male urethra comes in 3 regions. You have the prostatic urethra in the prostate, the membranous urethra after that, and then the spongy urethra that's actually in the penis, often also known as the penile urethra. The seminal vesicles produce alkaline viscous fluid that's high in fructose, prostaglandins, and clotting proteins. Fructose is important for giving energy to the sperm. The prostate will then add its secretion to the prostatic urethra. This secretion is a milky, slightly acidic fluid. It has citric acid, which is important for ATP production, the energy currency of the cell. It has proteolytic enzymes that will eventually break down the clotting proteins that were produced by this seminal vesicle. Also has acid phosphatase and seminoplasmin, which is an antibiotic. Want to keep things healthy. And then, as you go through the, as the semen goes through the membranous urethra, the bulbourethral glands will add their production. They secrete mucus and alkaline substance that helps to protect the sperm in its journey within the uterus. Finally, the semen will be ejected through the spongy urethra to leave the body out of the external urethral orifice. So the penis is basically a big passageway for the ejaculation of semen and also excretion of urine in males. And it consists of 3 regions of its own. You have the body of the penis, the main portion, and it has 2 structures within it. The corpora cavernosa penis, which is on the more superficial area, wrapped penis, and then the corpus spongiosum penis, which is wrapped around the urethra and is a little sturdier in order to keep the urethra open. And then, of course, all of this is surrounded by the tunica albuginea, which is basically the connective tissue that helps to underlie the skin. And you can see here that when you look at the blood vessels, the arteries, you have arteries going through the corpus spongiosum, and you have veins and a few arteries up in the near the tunica albuginea area. You have the glans penis, which is the head of the penis. The head can be subdivided into the corona, which is sort of the outer area, and then the prepuce, which is the foreskin for those who still have it. And then you have the root of the penis, which has the bulb of the penis and the crust of the penis. And this is what's basically attaching the penis to the trunk of the body. Now, let's talk about those blood vessels again. Because of their location, what you see can happen is that when an erection occurs, the blood will be able to enter via the arteries here, and that'll fill up the corpus cavernosa of the penis, making it expand. And when there's this expansion, it'll actually push pressure and partially close the veins found in the penis. And because of this, you'll have more blood coming in than going out. You'll have an actual erection. Now, the thing that signals this is that you have a parasympathetic nerves that will trigger the release of nitric oxide. And this oxide will allow the arterioles to dilate, basically increase the blood flow in, filling up the corpus cavernosa, which would then cut off the outflow to some extent. And that's basically how an erection occurs. Disorders in the male reproductive system. Well, you've got cryptorchidism, which is when the testes do not descend into the scrotum before the infant is born. Usually they wait a little bit to see if this will happen on its own, but if that doesn't occur, then they'll have to have surgery to put the testicles where they need to go. Priapism is a persistent and usually very painful erection that does not necessarily have any correlation to sexual desire. It can last for several hours and cause tissue damage. And then there's acute and chronic prostatitis, which is enlargement of the prostate. And if the prostate gets bigger, since we have the urethra going through it, that can cause an obstruction to urine flow and can be very painful. And then there's prostatic cancer, which is the leading cause of death from cancer in men. Cancer developing in the prostate, and the easiest way to test for this expansion of the prostate through cancer is a digital rectal exam. And that is it for this part of the lecture. Hope you enjoyed it.